This is the Appliance Alliance podcast, where we are elevating the appliance industry, one podcast at a time. Hey guys, and welcome to the Appliance Alliance podcast. I am your host with the most equipment, and alongside of me, both of my co-hosts, I have the man with a plan. He needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. Mr. TK Cousins.
What's up, y'all? Super excited. Be back recording again and looking forward to doing a little prattling with two of my favorite people, Mr. Zach Kreider and Mr. EJ Magic Mike. So, yeah, we're going to get into some good talk today.
Yeah, and in rare form, I have both of my co-hosts. I also have Mr. EJ Magic Mike Johnson.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. It's been a couple weeks. TK took my spot away from me again, but we're going to graciously share co-host with the wonderful Zach Kreider. Looking forward to chatting with you guys today.
It's kind of fun to have everyone.
Yeah, it is. I like hanging with you guys. Like, we don't talk enough during the day. Let's do it after hours.
Yeah. Right. So, if you if you haven't followed along with our podcast, we all pretty much talk basically all day in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we're hit or miss. We hang up now and again, but at some point throughout the day, all of us are in conversation. So that's the life of appliance techs that have a lot of driving to do.
Helps kill the time, that's for sure.
It sure as heck does. And keep us sane. I mean, I feel like being able to chat with you guys kind of keeps me on the semi-right side of sane, because I'm never going to be all the way sane. But
yeah, and speaking of that sanity,
the deep end.
That's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. One of the biggest frustrations of business owners, we'll just say in this industry, but, you know, it's across the country and across other nations if you're in any of them other areas. You have guys working for you, trying to get them to do what you need them to do with as little training and hand-over-hand direction as possible. And now that I've hired my first guy, we're all three multi-tech companies. Yay. But that's what we're going to talk about, the struggles and frustrations and whatever comes with having technicians with you. Go ahead, guys.
I mean, so training technicians, right? It's hard when you're running. If you have a technician that doesn't know anything and you're out there running yourself, it's great for like the first 2 weeks. But you know, then once you kick them out and they're off on their own and they're doing their thing, I'll tell you what, it can sneak up on you real fast if you don't follow up with them and you don't make sure that they're being consistent with the way you train them. I know both TK and I have experienced this in the past and semi-currently that, you know, we train people and they don't do things exactly the way that we trained them to do them. And we have no one to blame but ourselves. Like, hear me correctly. I literally just said this to both of them today. You know, the things that I've done along the way that are training issues, it's 100% me. I have no one to blame but myself for not following up on how I've trained. So, you know, the responsibility falls on you as the owner or you as the manager, or lead tech, you know, and in really, really multi-tech companies. It's your responsibility to follow up with these technicians and make sure that they're doing the things that you train them and taught them to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to anybody like EJ that's just getting into hiring techs is um, as much as you don't want to micromanage your technician, you have to micromanage your technician at first until your technician proves that he doesn't need to be micromanaged. Because that was the big mistake we made was, trained up the tech, thought he was great, thought he was doing everything good, sent him out on his own, and then next thing you know, you're 6, 8 months deep into it, and it's a snowball of issues that hits you all at once. And you literally have to stay on top of them and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing because they're not the owner of the company, they're an employee. Your goal is to get them to a point where they treat it as a career and not a job. And that's kind of what we were talking about today, is how do you get a technician, especially a young technician, to not treat appliance repair like another job, but like a career, something that you plan to do for the rest of your life, and not just, oh, I'm going to do this until I find something better.
Yeah, and EJ, you've been in management, so I mean, you've trained a lot of guys coming and going, and one of the things that in all the stuff that we do, whether it's the mastermind, it's just chatting throughout the day, um, you've kind of really encouraged us in some ways to help mitigate some of the issues. So why don't you pick up on some of the things that you've learned in your other world that you're bringing to the appliance world?
Yeah, as far as being a manager and dealing with people working for me in a company, there's a few things that stick out while you guys are talking, and I'll try to remember them as I go. Uh, One, we're all talking about making a standardized training processes for hiring new guys and getting them ready to go on the road, taking calls with minimal supervision. And I'll tell you, even though I had been engaged in those conversations in the last few days, it just hit me again while y'all were talking that this ain't necessarily cookie cutter. We can get a process for starting the training, but each person is differently. And I know your guys' techs somewhat personally. I got to meet TK's. I've dealt a little more with Zach's guy. Two completely different fellas. One's young, one's middle age, working age guy. He's had a career already. It's not new to work, not new to a career. Uh, Both of them have a desire to learn and want to, and great guys from what I've met. But people learn differently. People are motivated differently. It's our job as managers in our companies, and if you're the trainer in your company, you know what I'm talking about. Is find a way to engage that person and motivate that person particularly within the procedure that you have, and you really have to manage each tech on a regular basis. Like you guys were talking, the trust but verify is what we'd call it. Before you get to the micromanaging, you turn them loose, but you don't really let go. You're kind of checking in on them. Other things we talked about before to hit the other two items I was talking about: setting clear expectations and documenting the process. One, if you don't have a process for expectations for your techs, maybe that's where you start. If you don't know what you want them to do until they're not doing it, then they don't know, and then hold them accountable. And like Zach, you've admitted what we've talked about before. I'm almost done. As a manager of people, you have to always first assume that it's your fault, that you didn't do enough to communicate it, and until you can prove otherwise.
Well, and I want to talk about the expectations, right? Because you want to find where the biggest source of frustration in your day is going to come in. It's unmet expectations. And you're going to be frustrated, but guess what? If you didn't clearly define what your expectations are, that's on you. Um, and I found that as I've trained over I've had a lot of guys that have come through. I inherited guys, I've hired guys, I've fired guys. And the times that I've been the most frustrated, I've looked back and it's the expectations that I didn't set or didn't make as clear as I could have. Those were the things that frustrated me the most. Now, if you're frustrated because they didn't meet the expectations and they're very clearly defined, that's where your processes come in. That's where whether it's verbal, you guys have communication, go, hey, you know what? Here's where you're falling short. Here's where I need you to really improve. Here's where I see you can improve. Whether it's written, it's gotten to the point, you know what? We've talked about this a couple times. I'm writing this down, do it again and you're going to be out the door. So that's then where those processes come into place. Coach up, coach out. And it's your responsibility to make sure that's clear. And if you're not sure where to start, that's where the masterminds, that's where us in conversation, we've been able to realize that. Like, I didn't realize how bad things were and how unclear things were until the guys came in and assessed, and I went, good God, no wonder I'm pissed off all the time. It's because I, as the leader, wasn't leading. I wasn't clear in what was to be expected. I knew in my head, and I maybe had verbalized some of it, but it wasn't clear. It wasn't wash, rinse, repeat. They couldn't follow what they needed to do on a consistent basis. So that's the things that we're talking about process. I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from all our conversations.
One thought that comes to mind from my management days is a thought that I had been given in training. It's the idea that every good person that you hire, and let's name it, we're not hiring people that we don't think are good people, good fits, right? If you're doing it right, you're vetting them and going through a process. Every reasonable person wants to be successful. They want to. They want to do a good job. They don't want to come in and be crap. And some of them end up doing that because we don't, as leaders, show them what success looks like. So you have to very clearly show them, write it down, take a picture, whatever it is, and watch them. And that's the second part, is the review process. If you remember from previous jobs that you've had in past lives before you're a business owner, you get regular reviews. Most companies do it at least once a year. I think new guys, you should do it once a week until it's monthly and then quarterly, and still check on them. But have the conversation. What's going on? What are your struggles? Because some of them don't want to tell you what their struggles are. And if you don't check in with them, they think they're doing a good job, because no news is good news, right? So negative feedback, constructive feedback is just as good as positive reinforcement, and at regular intervals according to the skill level. Even the senior guys that know what they're doing sometimes appreciate a little bit of attaboy. Hey, I can count on you all the time, man. You're killing it. Keep it up. Even something like that, just to keep somebody happy, so you don't have to replace them.
Yeah, and that's where you as the business owner need to be in some form of accountability, whether it's a mastermind, it's you call someone throughout the day, because you need that encouragement just as much as your team does, right? I mean, so I felt like I was an island up until we started conversing and being a part of the mastermind. And I can call these guys and go, I suck. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I suck, and they can encourage me and they can highlight the points in the day. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, maybe you did that wrong. Here's how you can improve. Or, you know what? Hey, you're doing really good. You're seeing the wrong side of the coin. Just, Keep your chin up. You got it. We encourage each other throughout the day, and that is critical. If you're out there and you're running a business and you don't have anyone that you're accountable to, man, you're gonna sink real fast. TK, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to touch a little bit. I agree 100% with what y'all are saying about, setting expectations and all those things. And the follow up is key, but also incentivizing. I think it's important as business owners that we incentivize our employees, technicians, contractors, whatever we have, to do a good job, but also put systems in place that promote that, which is what I'm working on right now. I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but there has to be repercussions for mistakes. There has to be repercussions for not doing all of what you're supposed to do. And putting those systems in place and putting those practices in place to where your guy knows, like, hey, if I don't fill out all my information on my dispatch software, I'm not going to get my full percentage of commission. Or if I don't, if I get more than one recall, I might get some money taken out of my check. Or if I, waste money on parts, I'm going to get money taken out of my check. You can't just say, hey, this is what I expect, and then just have the systems in place. You also have to have repercussions and incentives. Like, let's say you got 5 techs running on the road, have some sort of competition going. I know Justin Gandy's real big on doing competitions. Whoever gets the most 5-star reviews gets a gift certificate or a new, I don't know, whatever, whatever your thing that month is. And then track those things and see what your guys are doing and see, who's out there killing it.
For sure. I mean, so the point of this is you can't beat a horse if the horse doesn't know what it's doing wrong, right? You got to give some carrots, and yeah, you might need to use the stick, but you have to be very clear what and why and how, because people can't succeed, if they don't know where the guardrails are. If they don't know where the boundaries are, they can't succeed. And that's on you as the owner. And that's the point that we're driving home. Like, none of us can blame employees for doing the wrong thing unless we've made it abundantly clear what the right thing is, right? It has to be in place. And you can't train new employees if you don't have a process in place, because this has to be wash, rinse, repeat. You have to be able to do this over and over and over again so that it's habit and it's routine. So we're trying to keep this episode short because we've been talking just a crazy amount on the last several podcasts. So I'm going to give each of you guys a quick minute here to wrap up with your thoughts. And this is going to be a multi-part, like some of our other ones. This is going to be a multi-part. This is just part 1 of talking about training issues. So EJ, I think you raised your hand. So if you want to go ahead and give your wrap up, go ahead.
Yeah, I was pointing for TK to go first, but one thing I want to touch on again, because I don't want it to go unnoticed, is what Zach was mentioning earlier about having accountability partners and somebody you can go and vent to, because a lot of people in this industry are small organizations. We're one-man show until we hire a guy, and we might have 2 guys, and you're still running calls. Whether that's the case or not, you can't talk to your techs and employees, subcontractors, like wet dogs. You can't whip them all the time. And really, the frustration is real. Okay, what you're feeling is real and it's justified. But get the meat of the aggression out, the frustration out with somebody in a safe place that don't work for you, preferably, so that you can go in with a cool head and have a proper conversation. And we will have more talks about this and leadership styles and techniques, but respect is key. know that they don't mean to make a mistake and treat them as such, because it's really easy to get frustrated and take it all out on the tech, and you're just creating a bad environment. So stay tuned for more, though. Check out the masterminds.
TK, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to just back up what EJ said. My goal with my partnership that I am a partner in is to build a family environment for our company. I want it to be a family. I want my technicians and every person that works for me to know that, yeah, I'm your boss, yeah, I'm your employer, but at the end of the day, I truly care about you and love you. And that's the number one thing. Like, if you want to rule with an iron fist, then you're going to get what's coming to you. But if your people know you love them, they're going to take that criticism or that rebuke or whatever you give them in love. And sometimes it's going to be tough love, but they're going to know, hey, TK and Austin love me. TK and Austin cares. Zach loves me. EJ loves me. And at the end of the day, if you're cultivating that type of environment in your business, it is an environment for success, in my opinion. And that's all I got to say about that.
That's awesome. And I just want to highlight that that's the first at the end of the day that we've had on the podcast in a while. So that makes me happy that we brought that back. So thank you for that, TK. Yeah, so this is like a super important topic, and I know we're just briefly touching on it. Like 20 minutes is just, it's really just not enough time to dive into this, and it'll probably end up into a couple multi-part episodes. But like, these are important things, and these are the things that we go through as owners of businesses. And if you're feeling these things, you're not alone. You're really not alone. And stay tuned. We're gonna dive into more as the weeks go on. So with that, we're gonna sign off for tonight, and you guys have a great evening. Appliance Alliance podcast signing off.